Hi, I'm Virginie Lakins from Roland Designs. Recently, one of you put a comment on one of my YouTube videos asking about signing your work on canvas, and I have a few suggestions for you. I have here a classic canvas work picture. As you can see, every piece of the canvas is covered with wool. It's all embroidered, and if you put your name or date on it, it would just look very clumsy. So in a situation like that, where you have a picture that's going to end up framed, the most natural would be to put it in the back. You could write your name, the date, any information you want on the back of the frame, and that would be one way of signing your work. But what if you have a project that's not going to be framed? For example, I have here a slightly older picture. Yes, I know it's lopsided, that's probably why I was able to purchase it. Let's say that the person who embroidered this wanted to make it into a cushion. How would you sign it? Well, you could add your signature at the bottom here. It would look pretty big, it would look kind of taking over and distracting from the picture. And you could, of course, make into a cushion and embroider your name and date on the back. But it would just, again, be a little bit distracting. So in a picture like that, I would suggest making a very small symbol, and that you do the same symbol on every one of your projects. A little tiny symbol that you can just blend into in a corner. I'll show you more about it later. Here is another piece. This is an antique Berlin woolwork slipper. I only have one piece of it. This is also an example of an embroidery where you would probably not put your name on it. It's not much place for it, but again, maybe putting a very small symbol at the bottom, or I have an even better suggestion, embroidering your name or your date or your initials by splitting into the canvas. As you can see, canvas has two threads going up and going down, and usually you embroider over the two threads, but what you could do is you can split it and make a very small embroidery just over one thread. I worked a tiny little sample here, where this is just a piece of canvas I had, where I did like just my typical signature. I'm Virginie, but I always sign Ginny, and I worked it just very simply in wool, and as you can see, it takes a lot of place. So if I would have this on a picture, it would definitely disrupt a little bit the harmony of the picture. But I tried it also with just making a very small initial. And this one is a bit large actually, you could make it smaller. I just made a simple cross with 4 dots around it. And you could do something like that and make it your signature, that every time you see in an embroidery a little symbol like this, then you know that it is your work. You'd have to be very faithful to always do exactly the same. And over here, I'll put some close-up pictures later. I tried it with just one thread of DMC embroidery cotton, and I split the canvas, and I wrote my initials, and I made a little frame also with one thread of embroidery cotton thread, and then I put the wool around it. And as you can see, it makes it a much smaller way to write your name or the date, or even just your initials, the 2 letters of your name. So this is also a possibility for larger projects, and you just kind of sneak it into a little corner of the picture so it doesn't distract from it. So these are some suggestions you can use for your projects. If you do a larger project, for example, I have here, I'm just going to lift it up, I have an old embroidered antique chair. I'm planning on renovating one day, and no, I'm not breaking it. Old chairs come apart. This one is really need to be redone. On a piece of furniture, you could of course put your initials somewhere on the side where nobody sees it, and you could also just put it in the back, write down the information, kind of like a picture frame. But if you had, for example, the little symbol, just a little simple initial, you could pop it into a corner of your embroidery or on the side, and then you would know that it was done by you. Something also that you can do, which I don't know how many people are faithful at doing this, I know I'm not, is taking photos of all the pieces you do and making a sort of album with the name, the date, the material you use, which pattern. That would make a very nice scrapbook or album of all the different pieces you've stitched, or it can also include all your other projects. If you've knitted, if you've crocheted something, you just keep an album of it with all the names, the date, the threads, how long it took, any comments on it. A small craft journal, and that is something that I wish I had started many years ago. Unfortunately, I didn't think about it then, but I do have some photos of some pieces I have done and given away. But unfortunately, I don't remember the date on them because I hadn't thought about actually just documenting it all by taking a good photo and writing down the information. So once again, when you do an embroidery, or you put time into something, like you don't need to date every item of just practice, but when you do something you're proud of, do sign and date it. Here is a recent project I just finished a few days ago, and I did put my initial and the date, but as you can see, working on linen is much easier because the linen is so fine. You can write very, very small initials and dates at the bottom. It's not so easy when you're working with canvas, which is much thicker. But there is the possibility of just adding a little something, just to kind of know who stitched it. And for example, if you do furnitures or lots of cushions, if you have a little symbol somewhere on all of them that you always do exactly the same, then later on your family will treasure them even more as heirlooms, as they will know exactly who stitched it, and maybe you have in your journal written when you did it. So all this makes it a lot more valuable, and I wish that all craft people would do that. I know people who paint are much more clever at remembering to sign their work, but I think any piece of craft or art that you do should have your name and initial in it, someplace or another. So I hope these small ideas are helpful. And of course there is also the possibility in this modern day and age of ordering ribbon, machine produced ribbons with your name stitched by so and so, and those are also very useful. I've seen a lot of knitters use them on sweaters stitched by grandma. So these are also possible to order and use them, and then you just stitch them somewhere on your work. Or dressmakers could also use them. Of course, I don't like to encourage people to buy things, so as much as possible try to incorporate your signature and the date of completion in your embroidery, and you'll see it will just make it a lot more valuable for yourself and for the people who receive it as gift or inheritance. Hope this helps a little bit, and if you have any ideas, any suggestions, or anything you've used to sign your canvas work, do send me a message, an email, or put it in the comments. Have a nice day. Here you can see a little bit closer the details. It's not so easy to film it, but you can see how the canvas has two lines of threads going up and going down, and for the very small signature I just stitched over one thread. It makes a very big difference in size, and it would be easier to squeeze this small signature into a bigger picture than this one.